Hello, adventurers, and welcome to Roll For Bluff, our talk show where we discuss our ongoing Dungeons & Dragons campaign, Bards and Nobles. I'm your host, Sam, and I play Calmine. To my right is Tristan, who plays Sorn Thunderfist, and to my left we have Brandon, our Dungeon Master. They'll be joining me as my co-host, as well as really bad lawyers. We're continuing our story tonight in Solitude in Sonderheim, and I think that this story can only be best told from the Sorn perspective.
Yeah, we'll start with our DM to get us to that portion.
So, in the beginning of this arc, the group had recently learned through Sorn's dream of his mother and clan being in a rough spot, as they say. And they began their journey from Dramic to Sonderheim, which is on the outskirts of the Badlands. Now, along the way, they ran into some squabbles in the party on what was going to happen, demons and whatnot. They also ran into the White Talon, a group of thieves, murderers, rogues, and all sorts of unseemly types. And during that fray, before the fray, Rhaegorn and Calmine, having seen a cart on the side of the road, begin to investigate to the best of their ability. And Rhaegorn, being the brash, straight to the chase, not thinking about things, Dragonborn that he was, stuck his hand into the cart, triggering an explosion, and a massive explosion, throwing debris, throwing them, and they were attacked by a group of thieves. Beating them quite heavy-handedly, even with some people being in an explosion. As soon as the battle ended, they saw someone across the way, over a hill, coming towards them, and they learned and met with Karak, a Kalashtar bard rogue, who had taken care of the second wave of White Talon that were going to come after them since the first wave failed. So they've met a new ally, and that is who they took with them into Sonderheim, because he happened to go that way himself.
And that's where it was very beneficial. Seeing how we had lost Aristotle at that point, adding another member was very beneficial, I think. Which is why I think the group jumped at the chance. Like, oh yes, another person.
New friend!
We need someone to step in a little bit while we're man down.
So that is when they strolled on into Sonderheim, where one of Sorn's most trusted friends and father-ish figure was there and not waiting for them, but happy to see them. And that is where the group met Jeb.
Yeah, that's where we walked into the town. And of course, the first place you always go is the Inner Tavern, because that's always the information center. And we had gone in, and behind the bar was let's see, what does Jeb look like? Like, how do you describe him?
Jeb is an older human, roughly about 55. He has sandy blonde hair. He's about 5 foot 10 inches. Longer beard. He's got muscle on him, but he's also kind of lanky. And he is a southern boy.
Right.
His name's Jeb, and he is happy that you're here. Well, good and howdy, it's Sorn. He very happily jumped at seeing Sorn.
Right, this is where the group learned, because it had been mentioned that Sorn had been banished from his home, and that's why it was a big struggle for him to even start to think about coming back. But that's where the group learns that Jeb had met Sorn when he was child, teenage, like preteen maybe, when he was banished and when he wandered the Badlands to a town that he didn't even know was really there. They learned that Jeb had taken Sorn in, essentially treated him like a child, and helped raise him till Sorn was ready to leave.
Just imagine a countryman. Well, this here's my boy. He doesn't look like you. Shut your mouth. He looks just like me. He has my rippling muscles, can't you tell?
Looks just like my grandfather. What?
Nothing.
That looks skip a generation. So upon meeting Jeb, and Jeb was of course very happy to meet with the rest of the group. I'm like, and he's a friend of Sorn's a friend of mine. And But as information center, we find out that Jeb had worked pretty often with the with some of the Goliaths, at least some of the factions, and because of that, Jeb was very much beneficial to the information of. This is where we found out that Sorn's mother had gone missing. So not only was it that the tribes were at war, but the main reason was because the cool-headed matriarch was missing, while very heavy-handed and very aggressive and very angry Jeroen was doing his best, and it's hard to when all he knows is rage. So yeah, we had learned that they had broken into factions after the disappearance of Thea. Jeb also mentioned that a local group of bandits bringing up the White Talon had threatened to come back to town and apparently shake him down like any good Western.
Give us your town.
We
don't want to give us your town. Give us your town, or we're gonna come back again. Oh,
hey,
no.
It's protection money. Protection from what?
Us. Give us your town.
And this is where, of course, Sorn hears about all this, and he immediately vows to fight off the White Talon and protect his what he feels much more is his home than, oddly enough, the area right next to it, which is his home. But this is where again we decided to help the White Talon, but we were also determined to fix the thing. So I know as far as how it played out, this is where your DM gets to play with you a little bit, because you can come up with a backstory and of course with us being newer players, we don't have it so super detailed. So we just had Sorn was banished and now he's around here, and this is where Brandon had it. So it was revealed that Sorn was raised in a town. So it was roll to figure out if you know who Jeb is.
If you remember him after all these years.
It was okay.
He did not roll high enough. His Goliath brain too puny.
Yes. Which is funny because his intelligence isn't the lowest.
No, because he didn't roll high enough.
It's I almost feel like I should have reversed the charisma and the
man, that wouldn't have been smart.
Yeah.
I mean, after Sorn realized who he was,
right after the flashback, it was one of those things. It was everything clicked. I mean, granted, they had gone through so much stuff right beforehand. It's okay if he doesn't remember everything. But so this is where we had it, where Sorn realized it, and he was overjoyed with running into essentially his father figure, the carrying one. He was happy to see the family. Oh wait, and you have a kid! Holy crap, everything's going crazy! And of course he's terrified to hear that his town, his hometown and everything is nuts. The town again recognizing him and stuff like that. Sorn was happy to see Jeb, and I'm guessing with your
Jeb was infuriated. Jeb had never felt more rage. No, Jeb was. It's like when your kids go off to college. That's the only thing I can think of. You went off to the college of the world, and he didn't know if you were ever going to come back.
Oh no, it's like when he goes off to war.
Yeah, that's true. It's like when you went off to war and he didn't know if you were going to be alive or come back.
Right.
And so he was overjoyed at the sight of you and seeing how big and strong you were.
Because I imagine Sorn left probably early.
Sorn left in
late teens,
18,
19, maybe early 20s, and I imagine he grew another foot or two
after that. And he got bigger, he got stronger. You got different tattoos, you got more swag,
more beard,
and so he was proud to see that you had grown into someone strong and someone to take care of yourself, especially after everything.
And I imagine he was also just glad to see that he wasn't still traveling by himself.
Yes, that's it. Ned, he was very glad that you had friends.
Oh, friends. Quotes.
That you had...
I had people with me that he assumed were friends.
That's all he knows.
Oh, sweetie, it's your friends.
Go away, Ma! God, Dad, you don't understand me! You can't throw your hair, so Swift's beard.
They put it over my face. So I know we had done it where we had made the commitment to, because it was about a month away was when the White Talon was going to come back, 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it was all right, we'll make sure that we're here in 4 weeks, but, a brief description of, it's I got a vision from Thor, Mom needs help. Your mom is missing. Head this way and you'll find your dad.
And that is... almost immediately after, they're like, "Oh yeah, if you just head into there, you'll find your dad."
Right, and also rolling into town is Goliath. Yeah, so that's where you get a couple of Goliaths, because again, Jeb had opened up more trade with Jeroen in order to keep, peace.
His part of the clan, well fed and taken care of and in control.
Make sure that Goliaths don't just roll in and bulldoze a city. So Jeroen had showed up, and he didn't know Sorn was there until he walks in the bar and sees him. And of course, disapproving dad.
Yes. How did you react again to seeing your father?
Oh, I punched him in the face.
Oh yeah.
Just
walk out. Boom.
Yeah. And he punched back.
He punched back. He punched hard.
I've got to say that was kind of like the shining moment of Cal's respect for Sorn, was when he just
was like, "Hi, Dad. Remember when you banished me? Pow! I'm a big boy now."
And so there was a little bit of a scuffle, and then Cal
thought it would be smart to charm my dad.
I mean, it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
To her credit, his charisma not that high. His wisdom not that high. So
just trying to quell a storm there a little bit.
Yeah, but after all that, it was one of those things where it was like, all right, cool. Well, Dad, I'm just here to help find Mom. That's all I'm here for. I don't give a crap about anything else. I'm not trying to get back in the clan or anything. I'm still banished, whatever. You don't have to like me or love me or give a crap. I'm here to try to help you find Mom.
Meanwhile, in his head, why don't you love me, Dad?
Now, he has a new dad. That's all he cares about. He's like, I got a new dad. New dad better.
And so...
new dad nice.
No, so then you followed Jeroen of Chirokoken.
Right. That's my original clan name.
And eventually you were wandering your way through, and the funny bit as a DM is charm only lasts for so long.
Right.
And the spell clearly states that once charm ends, the person who was charmed know they were charmed, and by who. So Jeroen, who was walking while everyone else was riding horses, slowed down and went, "Pah!" right to Cal's face. Which I don't think it took you down like half health, but it did like a solid
It did at least
chunk.
a quarter.
I mean, worth it.
Worth it.
You're like, we didn't die in the town or anything. So we're following with them because that's where they're going to have a meeting of the clans. So the clans are broken up into 4.
Yep.
So Jeroen was leading one. Sorn's brother Gorn was leading another. Then there was there was the 2. One starts with a Y, doesn't it?
Not Yengu.
No.
The one there's Lamon and
I thought there was another K.
Kolokeku.
Yeah.
So there's Lamon, Kolokeku, Chirokoken, and technically Gorn's younger Chirokoken.
Yeah.
Which Gorn, as we found out later.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, but we get to the big meeting, and that's where we run into Gorn for the first time, where he's very friendly. He's very happy to see Sorn. And, they just because Sorn had a good relationship with Gorn even after the banishment, that wasn't going to go away, and that's where they start like, hey, like we'll fuck with the rest of the Sorn's group and everything, and pretend that we're gay lovers, and it's like, now we're brothers, we're just fucking with you guys. But yeah, so they get to this big meeting. It's essentially big parties of things.
Oh, it's the first time the Chirokoken have, as a tribe, got back together in couple months since the splitting of the factions.
Right.
So it was a celebration ceremony, kind of.
Right. And this is where, like, even while we're waiting for all the there was festivities before even the meeting, and this is where each the party members went and did something else.
They went and they talked and they got information. They learned things from the various people of the tribe, and that's where Sorn saw everyone's the 4 tribe leaders' daggers in the dirt, symbolizing that the clan was there and their representative was chosen.
Right.
And so then Sorn being just Sorn.
I mean, because again, Sorn has since he was banished, he essentially has his own thing, which is why he has the clan name Jotunheim, meaning the French, essentially the frost giants from Norse mythology. So he walks over and takes his Yikwa and stabs it in the ground as well, just because and of course he's just he's just looking.
I'm here. To which one of the clan elders noticed, and through that recognized Sorn as his own tribe leader.
Right.
Which
Which we'll get into that in a second, because that's where he's like, hey, when it starts, come with me. But before that, we met with my aunt.
Yeah, you met with...
with Auntie.
Yeah.
Which is just what Sorn calls it. And she, of course, she being an aunt, was like, everyone, just call me Auntie.
I'm Auntie.
Which is my mother's sister. And that's where we had discovered that through Auntie that Thea had wandered off, quote unquote, from what anyone tells. She wandered off a few weeks prior, and and this is, of course, during the time of the disappearance, before everything kind of went to hell. She had learned, never came back. She was the heart of the Goliath clan, so having that kind of removed caused a great rift in her absence, and that's when they split. And so that was it was already one of those things where you needed the both sides so that everyone didn't freak out.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing that happened, but there was no real evidence of what happened to her. And that was no matter what we had done, because even with all of her druid abilities and all the tribes are hunters and stuff like that, there was absolutely no evidence of what had happened to her, which was the biggest thing. But as far as we could tell, because of that, everyone was so focused on everything else, it was hard to even keep track of, like, we need to keep looking for her. It's like, no, we have other more important things.
We have a clan to try and run.
Right, which Goliaths are very weird like that. It's like, it's always for the good of the clan, regardless of what it is. If you can't pull your weight, even if you're like injured or disabled or anything, you're still expected to hold your weight. So we had learned that there was nothing. So it was like, okay, I guess we'll just figure out this meeting. And so that's when Sorn they were all heading to the big meeting. That's where the rest of the group went one way, and Sorn had met with the elder, and the elder takes him to the area with the rest of the clan leaders. And Sorn's like, why am I here?
And that was fun from a DM perspective, because I did not expect him to do that.
I didn't.
Not anything in my mind did I expect Sorn to just, because I set it up as the precedent that the knife in the ground was like the symbol of a clan head being there, and they're all united in one effort as the daggers are in the dirt. I had no idea that Tristan and Sorn were going to waltz on over and be like, yeah, it's for me too. So then I had to radically and very quickly put together an actual dialogue session between the clan leaders. I already kind of knew what their stances were and how they were going to talk.
You were just going to roll a die and see what the end result was.
I was going to roll a die, and there were 3 options.
Because everyone was introduced, like, it was supposed to be like all the Goliaths in a big setting, and then it was like each Goliath leader came out, announced who they were, what their clan was, and then did some kind of gesture. And when it came to it, then all of a sudden the elder looks at Sorn and goes, you too, go ahead. And it was like, okay. And I was like, I have Sorn Thundervision and does a symbol for Thor. And then, of course, Dad's like, oh my damn it, boy. This is why you're not part of the family.
And Gordon was just like, my man.
Which then led to, it was like, all right, everyone go back to your festivities. We're going to go have a conversation. And before we talk about how that went, that's when the rest of the party went and did different...
they did different games.
Yes.
Where they each got different clan names, like their nickname.
Right, so like Ray Gorn went and did the stone throwing, which he got... I don't remember his nickname.
I think it was just like Stone Fist.
Yeah, something like that. Cal did knife throwing and got...
Swift Hand.
Swift Hand, yeah.
Was it Swift Hand?
Yep.
Because I thought that was what Liren got for the sewing that she was doing.
No, I don't know. It's Swift Hand.
Okay. Hers must have been like nibble fingers or something. And I don't think Karak did very much. I think he just sat.
No, he just sat around and played music with everyone.
No, he stayed in Sonderheim.
That's right, yeah.
That's right. So he
did play around and play with everyone. Play with the kids back in Sonderheim.
Yeah. So yeah, he stayed back just in case the White Talon came early. And Bilal, I think
he just worked. He just got information around. Yeah, he just helped people.
So we got into the elder meeting with all the clan leaders to discuss the future of the tribes, and that was where there was the big debate where Lamont and the big K one
Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, Kit Kat.
Yep, that's what it is.
Goliath names are hard, all right?
That's exactly why I'm just like, I'm not going to try and pronounce them again.
So they were very much the matter of they both wanted to be in charge no matter what, whereas Jarun was like, we're going to find my wife.
We have to find my wife.
And Gorn was very like, well, no, let's just stay separate and let's each have our own territories, and I want this territory because it will benefit me the most. And everyone's like, no, we want those areas. And then it was everyone just looked at Sorn. It was like, hi,
tiebreaker. What do you want to do?
And so it became a tiebreaker situation where it was like, it's like, okay, then what do we do? And Sorn was like, well, how about this? We'll spend the next month looking for Thethia so that if we can unify the clans again. Because that was, again, the big deciding factor was if we could get that unification again.
You spent 2 weeks because you spent a week getting there. Then there's a week getting back to Sonderheim. So 2 weeks.
You're right. So we had... because it wasn't we had 2 weeks to find her. It was after a couple of months.
They were going to
find her. We were going to look for her for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Then you're going to head back.
Right, but if all the clans couldn't find her in I think it was like a month or 2-3 months, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Then that they would converse again, and then that's where everything was probably borderline war, and then go into war.
Which sort of that moment was just like, well, I can't stop that.
Well, I mean. All I can say is I'll look for her while I'm here.
And we kind of stepped over meeting someone else when you met Gorn.
Oh yeah,
Karn!
My
Sorn's
youngest
baby brother.
Yeah, my baby brother, who apparently my mother has told many stories about because that's what a mom does.
So Karn is the youngest of the, I guess, true Jarun Churokokin bloodline.
Right, the princes of the...
Yes, the princes of the tribe. Who, he was wide-eyed, he was 10. Yeah. So he's a 10-year-old boy. He's big, he's a Goliath, so he's a big boy. But he's still very young. He's kind of battle-hardened, he's kind of used to hunting, but he's still especially when he met Sorn, he was like, oh my god!
Right. Whereas he wasn't because he was trying to live up to Dad's expectations of being a straight up warrior, while his mother was teaching him
while trying to do more druidy things.
Yeah.
So
we had come to the consensus to look for her for the next 3 months before returning and going back before going to war. Whereas we were going to spend 2 weeks looking for her and then go back and try and deal with the White Talon.
So. We already know what your thoughts on when you met Jarun for the first time.
It's disapproving dad syndrome. And of course it was good to see Gorn because it was it's a good a brother. Even after everything, it was still a good relationship. They also had just a fisticuff battle as Goliaths do, and of course he tried to cheat and still lost and.
Magic.
He tried because it didn't help that he also had the totem of the bear, meaning he was resistant to
everything except for psychic.
But I forget, was it that he started to and I get, or was I still just dealt enough damage?
You still dealt enough damage.
Okay. I mean, either way. So yeah, I mean, so there was one of those things. So it was a good fun time had by all, and then we were all like, all right, let's do something else now.
Yeah, I know what Jarun was thinking. Jarun's entire time was like, shit, this boy is back in my life. I do not need this now. And especially after the thing with Cal, was like, his friends are annoying.
I mean, but then we also ran into it where the entire group was attacked in the middle of the night by... unknown. Was it unknown things?
It was a bunch of gnolls.
That's what it was. More gnolls. And there was a couple of deaths. There was things on fire, and of course that's where Jarun was hiding. And this is where you start to see some of the relationship between Sorn and Jarun waver a bit more, not so hateful.
Yeah.
Because this is where we see Jarun show emotion for the first time in Sorn's life, because he's usually that hardened figure. Because he's weeping and because he's not only blaming himself for the death of the children and the other Goliaths.
Yeah, there was the group almost stopped him. The group almost stopped the gnolls from because they had a high enough passive perception and saw it happening and figured it out. But they were not quick enough to stop one of the gnolls from taking a powder keg that had a fuse, and the gnoll threw it into one of the like residential areas in the tent city. That was the.
We had stopped one. I think there was multiple.
There were multiple. You stopped one, you couldn't stop them all, and the
Yeah.
other blew up into an area with quite a few
tents.
couple of tents with some kids and some like women and elderly. So that was super fun for me as a DM.
Yeah, just to be an awful person.
Yep. Being an awful person.
Right. So
But it's not me.
Yeah, but this was a moment where we saw like Jeroen's character like just actually have emotion. He was blaming himself for Thea missing, the tribe going to hell. But of course, it was just like, we'll come back to her, we'll find her, or as Sorn's like, we'll find her. It's like, if will we? But then he goes back kind of like the military mindset of like, if not, I'll just kill anyone who stands in my way. It's like,
I will
okay.
kill him. He even threatened to kill Gorn and Karn.
Yeah, if he had to. And I was like, Dad, you kind of need to calm down.
Take it down.
So then the next day there was more talking during the day. You guys like talked to people, were exploring around the tent city, more getting information, and then during the evening, you guys like there was a different smaller meeting. You were meeting with someone else at the time.
Yeah, I think I was with Auntie at the time.
Yeah, you were meeting with Auntie. And during that time is when Cal, Bilal, and Liren saw some of Gorn's troop talking to Le Mans and Kit Kats, and you saw them walk out into the desert together, and you decided to trail. And while you were out there, you learned. Pass over. What'd you learn? Pop a quiz.
What did we learn?
Well, he wasn't there.
I don't remember.
What?
We don't take great notes.
What they learned is that Gorn was secretly working with Lamon and Kat to eventually, once the agreed upon ceasefire truce was over, to look for Thuthia, his mother, that they would work together to just oust Jeroen and anyone who supported him, and then divide the land into three.
Because there was also talks about working with Sonderheim equally, rather than Jeroen being the sole person to work with them.
And that is when the group was also discovered. And
now this part I do remember.
The being buried up to your neck
we were
in
buried
sand.
up to our neck in sand, and that was not fun.
Well, you know what was really not fun for Bilal? Trying to turn into a snake and then still
that
being
didn't
stuck.
really work out as well as I think he wanted it to.
I now turned into a snake. Snake. Oh, I'm still stuck.
Because the dirt was packed but still heavy enough and loose that when he shifted, the dirt just went and continued to hold him. So that is definitely when you guys were suspicious of Gorn. Like something's wrong here in the Badlands. Yep.
Now I'll bring it up after we get through this part. I had forgot that we also had met someone else during the festivities.
I'll go through now.
No. Finish the sand part first.
I mean, you guys got your way out.
Got your way out and head back to town. As long as they promise not to say anything.
As long as no one, it was never known that the three other ones had met, they would leave you alive.
Right.
And if they found out that you had told people, they were going to kill the entire party.
Right.
Yeah.
So during the festivities, we met someone during the knife throwing. I should say Cal met someone who plays a role a little bit later.
Yeah, so Cal wound up meeting Kikyo, who was a childhood friend of Sorn's, a very nice Goliath lady.
Goliath about the same age as Sorn.
She and Sorn kind of shared a couple of moments. Too.
Right, they had drinks and shared stories of
had a dinner.
You know, catching up on.
Hey, it didn't go further than that. Sorn is a gentleman.
And during that knife throwing, you barely beat her.
Yeah.
You go to the natural 20 against her 18.
It was barely. That's why she was so impressed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was that, and that's when in the morning,
it's noted that Kikyo is part of Gorn's, not Jeroen's.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the morning, that's where we saw that Gorn was packing up earlier than everyone else because the plan was to stay another day or two.
Because stay another day or two, but he was packing up because I forget who it was. It was either you or Bilal.
Bilal.
Had said something that was just enough information for Jeroen, who's the head of the clan, to be like, wait. And then the math meme pops up and it's like, wait a minute. Gordon and them are working against me. And that's
you didn't lie quite enough.
You didn't lie quite enough. They told you they didn't lie well enough. And so it got back to the other leaders that they'd been had. And so Gorm was like, well, yoink!
I'm going to just leave and say it's another reason.
And
because we had also mentioned that that we had to leave soon because the White Talon was going to attack Sonderheim, and we had made a commitment to that.
And the Goliaths didn't really want the White Talon to have control of Sonderheim, of course, because that's part of their own trade. So I think we were initially under the impression that Gorn had taken his men to protect Sonderheim from the White Talons.
And so first left was Gorn, and then the other two were packing up and heading off into a different direction, but you could assume they were going to go around. Mm-hmm. And you and Jeroen beelined it.
Yes.
And Jeroen at that point, the only reason why you weren't attacked by anyone else was because Jeroen was like, "You're with us now. You're part of our protection. Like you're under our protection now. We're not going to let anyone hurt you. You did me a sign of a favor. I'm not going to let you die yet."
Yeah.
And so that is when you started to make your way back to town, and they had a bit of a lead on you, not just because they left early in the morning.
They had about a half a day.
They had about a half day, and then they also booked it from a DM perspective. I had them quick traveling since they had enough. Everyone was younger. There was nobody that needed really any aid or anything.
Corn's whole troop was like the young.
So they were able to get there in half the time that took you.
Right.
So that gave them plenty of time to...
Yeah, we got there and all of a sudden it looked like a small fort had been set up. So that's when we had gotten there. But before we even left, that's where we realized that... Karn was missing.
Yep.
Rhaegorn was missing.
Yep.
And Kikyo.
And Kikyo had gone missing, but we assumed that she was with Gorn, and we thought maybe Rhaegorn had he had flirted with someone enough that he decided to travel with. He was like, well, we're all going back to Sonderheim anyway.
I was right with you. So
and of course, but Karn was the big thing, which is I think why Drew and I booked it as fast as we did. Just because, again, he's like, my bloodline. I'm like, my brother.
My bloodline. Wait a minute. I'm right here. My brother.
So that's when we got back, and there was like essentially a mini, fort around.
They had instituted a sense of martial law, and it was under their rule, under their guidance as the big tough brutes. Because the people in the town, even though there were more of them than the Goliaths, there's no way they could take that. So when you began to enter, they let you in to the town. They said that they did this in order to protect their interests in trade as well as protect them from the White Talon.
Right.
And that is when you talked to Gorn you talked to Jeb. No, sorry, Jeb was...
We talked to a Karak.
You talked to Karak, who
he had been
he disguised himself
as a Goliath,
and he had beckoned you into the
bar.
The bar, and he had informed you.
We had found out that Jeb was imprisoned at home, that he was no longer in any kind of control. That Gorn had just taken over everything and was like, "We're gonna get." He had locked everyone in town hall.
Everyone who was unable to fight.
Right.
If they were able to fight, they were posted places where they could see them, and the Goliaths were there, and they pretty much it was, you're gonna fight and you're gonna die trying. But and that is also, I mean, were you after you talked to Gorn the first time when you got to town hall?
Right.
You were like,
he kind of blew us off, and we saw what was going on. We're like, it was definitely something. There was a very different. Gorn had a very different personality now. It was very evident that he was not the same fun-loving brother. Even his ideals, as far as like wanting to be a Goliath in charge of his own clan because of his different ideals, it was all much different than what he previously even seemed like. So that's when
control by force.
Right. Yeah. So that's what was it. Karak that has Zone of Truth that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had had it so that Gorn met us in the bar where we had done Karak had done Zone of Truth, so we can get information out.
He was
of him.
hiding. And also that is where Jeb's wife and daughter were hiding in a secret compartment underneath the bar.
The meat cellar. So that's where we had gotten him, and we were prying for information, and we had got, and he knew that he was in the Zone of Truth, but he was like, all right, ask your questions.
Yeah, this is how we're gonna do this.
And we were very careful with the questions we asked, because he could very easily just say no or yes. And
Zone of Truth does not force you to answer. It forces you to answer truthfully, you don't have to answer them.
Right, but he was pretty forthcoming with what was going on with him. And is that where we found out the big reveal, or was that... Because he poofed out of there.
Yeah, he poofed out of there.
But because he revealed it. Because
he was at the end of it right before he poofed out.
He took off his cloak or whatever he was wearing, and there was a clockwork heart in his chest,
which immediately
we were like, oh,
set Cal. Cal was like, no.
But yes, at the same time, I want it. So yeah, then he poofed out of there, showed up at the top of town hall, and then he was like, all right, brother and your friends, you're screwed now. And
you stepped into an area you shouldn't have and pried a little bit too much.
And that's when, right before a big old battle ensued, all of a sudden 4 big crosses are erupting from the ground. And on each one of them is Thuthia, Karn, Greg, and Kikyo.
All tied up, unable to move, and
unconscious.
Pretty much beaten to near death. And that's when Jeroen and Sorn were like...
Oh, hell
They kind of... to put it... If you don't know what a barbarian does, depending on the barbarian path, they go Super Saiyan. Either they just beef up and they plate themselves, or with Jeroen and Sorn, they go Super Saiyan. Where Sorn... If you want to explain what you're...
when Sorn rages, it's usually by Thor. He has a lot of static coming off him, visible electricity. He's covered in some tribal, but mostly Nordic knotwork and stuff, because usually you get a lot of your tattoos in your tribe, and since he left, he didn't get a whole lot of the tribal.
His tattoos glow.
They glow a nice blue.
And then you can zap.
Yeah, zip zap.
So he went...
And Jeroen has the ancestral...
So when he does that, the guardian, he glows like a goldenish yellow light, and the spirit guardians come out and around him, and he emanates a little bit, and they both are like... And at this point, you had a ring.
Oh, I had the ring of jumping at that point. That's right.
So Jeb had given him his grandmother's prized heirloom, which was a ring of jumping.
Which means I can jump very far now.
So he straight up Super Saiyan, and went off towards it, and that's when they rolled initiative.
Yeah. So then there was a big old battle with that, where Greg had woken up off the cross, got himself... Oh, no, you helped Greg.
No, I snuck around, started trying to cut people down.
Right.
But that stopped working because eventually Gorn cast Fairy Fire. So
and was like, hey there!
So I was able to get Greg down, and then we worked together to get Kikyo down.
And Kikyo was conscious. Karn and Thuthia were cut down, but they were unconscious.
Right.
So Kikyo hopped into battle, and Greg hopped into battle.
Right.
That's where we found out Kikyo has some monk in her, so she's just fury of blades all over the place. So yeah, there was the big battle. We had taken down some of the Goliaths, and then Gorn was like, you know what? Not worth it. Bye, guys. And then just disappeared at the end of the battle, because he wasn't even close to death.
Oh, no. You hit him once.
Right.
He was up there Well,
it didn't help that he has Totem of the Bears.
Totem of the Bear, but also he Warlock.
Yeah.
So he had Eldritch Sight, so his range was insane, and he also had... Eldritch Spear.
He was throwing out Eldritch Blasts out.
He was just going boom, 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 boom.
Well, because he wasn't even trying to hit us.
He was aiming at the other Goliath.
He was aiming... His distance was so great that he was able to hit outside the town. He was aiming at the women and children and the weak ones outside of town, while the group was like, we're right here, aim at us! And
he's hitting us.
Gorn just I don't care, you can't hit me up here.
Right, until Kiki and I are hopping up. We're like, hi, brother!
And then he did hop up, and he was like, oh, you got up here. Well, peace.
And then he disappeared. And that's where we had regained control. Any of the Goliaths that were there had like voluntarily given up, and they're like, "We're sorry. We were just following what we thought our leader was. Apparently, we're very
we were very wrong."
So it was that we had gotten them back on our side. But sure enough, right after this battle, about a week early, the White Talon starts rolling over the hill.
Yes, and that was you saw them roll into town, and that's when right before they actually got there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's right. No, they were dividing us between the Goliaths that had came with us. They were standing between them, so we couldn't get to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they threw in some.
That's right. They were throwing
pretty much
gas.
enchanted like boxes that threw out sleeping gas, which then knocked out a good chunk of the people in the town, except for some of our party.
Yeah, I was up.
I was up. We also, I believe at one point, Karak was also hidden among them as well.
That's right. He had turned into another one of them. He had kind of waved to us because he was
he did like a in the crowd to let you know, like, I'm here.
Right.
Yeah.
So the White Talon had shown up a week early, but
that's when you guys busted out there.
Right. We had fortified behind us. What is it? I had. Oh, that's where we found out that because we had met with Jeb and everything, but that's where we found out that since Jeb's house is outside of town technically, that they had grabbed Jeb and were holding him hostage.
Yeah, because you went in before the fight and everything. You talked to him to figure out like what the hell's going on.
Right.
And so then they busted down. He was like, I tried my best to stop him from getting in, but they just busted down my door. And so he was held hostage.
Right, and that's when they were like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" And then Sorn booked it.
And then you punched a dude.
I punched a dude. I grabbed Jeb, and then Croc was like, "Ah, crap!" Threw like a smoke bomb down.
It's a smoke bomb.
So I grabbed Jeb and ran to the other side with the rest of the Goliaths because Sorn was ready to just like, "Hey, Goliaths, there's plenty of us. If we need to, we'll just kill them.
We'll just throw down." But then
they were like, "We'll come back when we said to." And I tell you what, we'll come back, and if you can beat us in a fight, we'll leave you alone.
We'll make a deal. We won't take the town. We'll make a deal with the town.
Right.
So that is when you guys were like, oh shit,
my God,
shit, fuck, and then you went back, and that's when everyone was recuperating.
Mm-hmm.
You found out that Jeb was injured as well as under some sort of illness.
Right.
You didn't quite know what it was.
So Jeb was sick, but we didn't know what was going on with him. Thea was also unconscious.
Yeah.
We also found out that she had a clockwork heart, right? Mm-hmm. That's where she was sitting there with one on her as well.
Mm-hmm. Karn, you didn't actually recover. Karn
disappeared with Gorn.
And
No. Thea went with him too. We didn't have Thea yet.
That's right. No, yeah. So both those were gone. So you went back. You were like, okay, where is he?
Yeah.
Where's Gorn now? And that's when you discovered the whole thing with Jeb, and Bilal tried healing him, Karak tried healing him, people tried medicine, Auntie tried her druidic medicine, and nothing was helping.
There was just like a taste of, was it necrotic energy?
Yes.
But then Sorn prayed to Thor, and Thor just healed him right up.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, totally. Did not happen.
No.
That's exactly what happened.
In fact, what happened was someone's favorite... No, I'm going to let Cal tell this.
So what happened, was Fox showed up at the bar
because we had some of the White Talon guards with us.
The kids,
some of the kids had come into town, or we had.
And Rhaegar had taken them under his wing to be like, "You guys need to do better. You guys can do better. You guys are going to live in this town and help them."
Right, and so one of them who had talked to Cal and was like, "Can you help me for a second?" And she followed him into the kitchen, and turned out that he turned around. He was booped by Fox.
And Fox kind of put it out to Cal that he could help Jeb in exchange for Cal getting Kikyo there so that he could extract her soul and take her soul to hell. And so Cal...
Immediately,
without a second thought, you're not going to sugarcoat this. I'm not going to let you. Without a second thought, no bartering, no trying to rationalize. Just like deal.
It was like, all right, whatever.
All right, now let me defend myself for a minute here.
$2 for this, $3. That's my final offer. Deal.
Because Cal was like, Kikyo, Jeb. Which one matters more? Which one matters more to Sorn? I think it's Jeb. That's why Cal did that.
You can use it as a defense, but you hardly thought about it. I went, sure, I'll sacrifice someone else that's good.
So the way that Brandon was describing the situation was that, like, Jeb was on the wire. He was running out of time. They had tried everything. Nothing was working. Okay, so this was, like, Cal's, like, last-ditch effort. Like, sure, let's see if this works.
So she had met up with Kikyo. I was like, hey, Kikyo, good fight. Hey, why don't you come to the kitchen and I'll get you something to drink or something. And then let her walk into the kitchen first. And all of a sudden there was, like, a poof of red light. And a slight little...
You want to tell us what happened behind the closed doors?
Oh, you want me to give DM insight? Oh, this is where I can. This is the perfect moment to express what happened to good old Kikyo now that we can do this, and your characters can't do anything about it. So
we couldn't do anything about it right after.
She walked through, and the doorway that you saw, and you saw her walk through, and you I remember you because you're like, I don't want to look. So you didn't look. So on the other side of the door... what she saw was a thinly veiled mirage. And as soon as she walked through, she was she fell into a pit of spikes. Impaled her several times. Didn't kill her, which is on purpose. Through then, Fox took her to a chamber where he tortured her for a while, just so to get as much agony into that soul as possible, and then cast a spell and pulled her entire life essence out of her body and left just a big old meat pile, and it's now sitting down there on display. So, Kikyo did not have a painless extraction.
Right. So then after that, that concludes the night. We're all trying to figure out what's going on, but that's when, because it was one of those things where I think Sorn had slept in the room with Jeb. Jeroen had come in a few times to check on him as well, because as much as they Jeb doesn't have friends, he still respected Jeb for running the town and trading with him and always being kind. And there was probably, I imagine you'll have insight that he probably actually appreciates Jeb taking in Sorn. Because again, the relationship had changed significantly from the beginning.
It did. Being your father, as you found out, and you find out that he still cares for you and still is your dad, and was like, you turn into a fine warrior. He was kind of upset that you became
not a normal Goliath.
Well, not a normal Goliath, but also a little bit softer. That through Jeb's niceness and the family and
wander around the Badlands for 10 years.
You became kind of a softie to him, but he was glad that Jeb took care of you and that he gave you a sense of morality, kind of.
Right.
I know Jerome's not the most moral, but
right. It's probably one of those things where there's too much of his mother in this boy.
Exactly. But he did respect that Jeb, commanded respect from the town, and Jeb was his go-to for trade.
Right.
So losing Jeb would lose that supply line.
Right. So, but then that's when in the morning, Jeb had woken up and he had a more or less a clean bill of health outside of he was injured slightly. And we were like, oh wow, what the hell? This is great. Must did something. Auntie must have did something, or Thor did something, or
Thor. It was Thor.
But that's when we woke up. We had realized that Kikyo had gone missing.
You asked someone where Kikyo was, and using one of the very few times you rolled high enough.
Yeah.
You were like, oh yeah, I think she just went off to go take care of people, and she said she'll be back later.
Right.
And Storm was like,
oh, she wandered off.
Storm was like, that sounds about right.
But
checks out.
But then we found in the middle of town with was it a javelin or a spear? What is in them? I think it was Lamon, wasn't it, or was it Kit Kat?
No, it was Lamon.
It was Lamon.
It was Lamon.
Yeah, Lamon was Kikyo's dad, right? So it was. That's why we were asking where Kikyo was, because we had found her dad dead in the middle of town with a spear in his chest that goes, if you want to fight me, come to the cave. That we had heard about the cave several times.
It was a mine shaft that had been abandoned because there was none of people to work it, and there are strange things happening. So
they left it. It was come to the mine tomorrow or at noon.
At night.
At night, and if you want to settle this, come.
If you want to trade for Thuthia and Karn, you and Jeroen will have to sacrifice themselves. And both of them were like,
all right.
They were like, You were doing this. Deal. Ha! My final offer, $4. Take it or leave it.
So that's where we all were like, all right, team, we know what we're doing, right?
Yep.
Well, I think it was originally Sorn and
Jerome were gonna go by themselves,
but
and then the party was like, "Don't be dumb."
We're like, "We don't care.
Don't be stupid. We're coming.
Don't be stupid."
Right. So, and this is also where about this time I think it was in the morning you'd realize that your journal had a picture of Kikyo on the table.
Yep.
It was like a loose sketch.
It was such a pretty picture.
Yeah, a loose sketch of
Kikyo's torment.
Yeah, Kikyo's torment. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's nice.
It's like the meme of the dog with the room on fire. This is fine.
This is
fine.
This is totally fine.
So
so we had we're like, all right, let's go. Let's try and settle this as a group. Then,
and that's when
we went to the mine.
Mm-hmm.
We got in the mine. We got all the way down. There was nothing unlocked. I mean, there was nothing locked, even though we checked every door for locks and traps.
Because, doors.
Well, we assumed we were walking to a trap anyway, so it was like, yeah, we're gonna check everything.
So
and that's when we came to a big old furnace room.
The room that me and the mine was as Gorn promised. The mine was pretty empty, expecting just the two of them, and not being an idiot.
Mm.
So that is when they went and fought Gorn.
Right, where we found Karn was trapped, and then Thea was on a table in the middle of the room.
Being bloodlet
as a heart was being lowered.
Yeah, a heart was being lowered into her.
Right. So it was a race against time.
And both of them were encapsulated in, they couldn't just get
like a steel
metal
dome.
cages or something, yeah.
So
all the while, there was a large furnace on the side that was talking to Gorn as something started to creep.
I believe there was also a skull inside the furnace.
Yeah, it was the skull that was speaking to him, and there was arms that were on the outside, trying to pull itself out.
Yeah.
It was being fed by the blood that was being led.
Yep. So to surmise that, I don't know if you guys probably figured out what's happening. He was summoning a demon.
Yes.
He was summoning a big boy.
Right.
To come and pretty much annihilate everyone.
Right.
Take whatever he wanted, make a foothold here.
Right.
In the center of everything for, do you guys know which demon?
Yengu.
Yay!
Because we had also heard that he had troops up in the mountains.
Yay! You guys pay attention. Yes, so they had met. So at this point, this is where I established that Mephistopheles had his faction of people doing things, like with Bellington, and then we had Yengu had people in his faction doing things, and so you guys had their kerfuffle with
Gorn and everything.
with Gorn and everything, and that's when you found out that whenever I'm an evil DM, they were like, because Gorn raged, activating his totem, and then started to cast spells, and everyone was like, wait. You can't cast spells when raging, and that's when they noticed that Gorn's left arm had been replaced with a clockwork prosthetic with runes and sigils and everything in there, and that was how he was casting as when he was still in raging
form.
The arm
was almost acting on its own.
The arm was a magical conduit, so everyone was like, wait. We can't hit him that hard.
Right. Well, we also noticed that we couldn't really even get to him that much.
No, he was going, moving around, shooting blasts.
Right. But that's where we focused because we knew that something was coming out of the furnace.
There's a few imps.
Yeah.
And then you guys, something started to come out. It came out. It wasn't out fully.
We saw something was trying to get out of the furnace. That's where Sorn had started really focusing all of his attacks on the furnace.
Bam, 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 bam.
But it was Lyran that did the most damage because since it was a furnace and mostly fire, she started producing water. And
she used her create water for the day and put 30 gallons in there, which did some big damage.
Because, water beats fire.
But then it did what they weren't expecting. And it hellish rebuked.
Yes.
So it
took out Lyran that pretty bad.
It hellish rebuked pretty strong. That's when they realized that the furnace was a little more sentient than they thought.
Right.
And they did enough damage where they destroyed the furnace.
Put out the flames. Because I think Lyran was the one that got the final hits on that because she was doing more ice. She was doing Ray of Frost and ice knives into it to try and shut it down. Well, everyone else swords hitting it on the outside with a hammer.
And then everyone else was keeping the demon that was pulled itself mostly out at bay before it could get out all the way and trying to keep
it started creeping and it was like expanding and stuff.
And it was hitting. It was like hitting people.
Right.
And Jaroon was keeping Gorn at bay.
Yes. So finally we had hit the front stuff so that it started to shut down, and as it did,
I think it was an arrow to the skull.
Maybe.
I think it was an ice knife.
Back. Was it?
I think you're right. I think it was an ice knife to the skull that did it.
Yeah.
So then, as everything, it was like no, and so everything sucking everything in. All of a sudden, Gorn starts pulling in, and it's like, if you're coming with me, if I'm going down, Gorn's like, no, I've served well.
And when during that, Gorn ripped his skin off, revealing a demon had been wearing Gorn's skin.
Right. He looked at Sorn and was like, your brother's been dead for a long time. And of course, and this is where just Sorn looked at him and went, I figured.
Everything's pretty shit now.
Like, it wasn't even, it was like, no. It's like, yeah, I figured he's been probably dead for a while. Bye, mother.
Bye, you piece of crap. So
that's where we freed Karn. We had
healed Thuthiya enough to not have her die.
But she still had the heart in her chest.
Yeah, at that point, you guys weren't fast enough to stop the heart from being implanted.
Right. So we had loaded her up, brought everyone back to Sonderheim. And that's where we had sat with, we were trying to figure out
before we get to, you guys also did some exploration of the furnace.
That's right, we found
and you found a large clockwork heart embedded into the ground part of the furnace, which you guys had vowed to go back and destroy or get. We'll get back to that.
Right.
Dang.
Both of them immediately realized, oh no.
Oops.
We made an oopsie-doo. No.
Well, you guys will see that later.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, because it was one of those things where we had no idea how to destroy a heart.
At that time, no.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
So that's why, and later we'll talk about where we ran into Max. Sorn was like, hey, can you do me a favor?
But you guys headed back to town with
Thuthiya. They had healed Thuthiya as best she can. The heart had started to recede.
You noticed that White Talon had tailed you and watched you, and were heading to their own way where you guys headed back to town.
Right, so we had gotten everyone back to town. The White Talon had shown back up when they said they were going to, so there was nothing fishy there. So we had put Thuthiya in bed, and I was like, Jeb,
and Auntie was just like...
So, all right.
Auntie's like, druid magic.
By the power of plants!
So that's when the White Talon had proposed, was it 4 one-on-one fights? No, it was 5 one-on-one fights.
5 one-on-one fights.
Whoever wins more of them.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. Would get, it was either if they won...
They get control of the town, you guys leave.
And we leave. If we won, they had to...
make a trade deal.
Right.
And if they broke the trade deal,
the Goliaths were...
The Goliaths would be like, okay.
Right. So it was trying to do a peace treaty, essentially. It's like, you can trade with us, you can run with us, but you can't run anything. If you break it, the Goliaths are well aware, and they have free reign to just demolish you. So then, we had the fights. That's where we saw Liren get the most brutal we've ever seen.
Oh, my God. So Liren... one had totally outclassed the archer, amazing, because her AC is very high and her dex is very high. So if she needed to do anything, she could. She started to freeze with Ray of Frost and started to slow her down and freeze her. And then after she pretty much got
she got the kill, quote unquote, or the down with the freeze,
and then she continued until she was frozen. Then went with her sword and shattered the motherfucker. And everyone was like, oh no. Oh, cold, wet, nosy. Cold, wet, nosy.
That's when we're like, oh, this girl got a dark side.
Because at this point, they had done some brutal kills, but they were planning on killing. There was no set you needed to kill. If someone was down or said they quit, were out, or walked outside of the established arena.
Right. We had established a ring that if they were pushed out, that match was over.
But they were just kill.
Yeah.
There was the battle with Sorn with someone. And of course, Sorn goes in and he's ready for a fight.
This is my favorite.
This was great.
And this is where we found out, the power of suggestion is a wonderful
suggestion.
thing.
So suggestion is a spell where if it succeeds, you suggest a minor action or you can't suggest kill yourself or hurt someone else. You can suggest hide under that table, walk 50 feet that way, or turn around and walk out of the arena. And the person like is fully cognizant of like I don't win. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna and like fully.
And I think the worst part was the fact that Sorn went first and almost killed her with the first hit. It was like wham, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm not playing this game."
And leave.
Leave. And he's like, "What? No, what am I doing? No!"
And locked out and forfeit the match. So that made Sorn very mad.
Yeah.
So that was that was win, and then you guys pretty steadily handily.
I think we handled the rest of it. I think we got the other. We only did one more battle or two more battles.
Yeah.
I think Cal won yours.
So I won mine, and then I wound up slitting the guy's throat, and that's when his ghost instantly.
Oh yeah.
I started seeing him.
Right.
So that's when her haunted one in the journal and everything, because of all the events and everything, became a little more potent.
Before that, we had also noticed that, or you had it so that once Gorn was sucked into the furnace, you started seeing his ghost almost immediately as
and
well.
And
Kikyo. So now I had 3 ghosties, 3 ghost friends.
So you had those ghosts showing up. So yeah, so you slit your guy's throat. I think Bilal won his.
Rhaegar didn't have the fight.
Yeah, Rhaegar didn't even get a chance to fight. So we had won 3 out of the 5, and they were like, "All right, fine, I guess we'll sign the treaty." So they had signed a peace treaty essentially, and like, "Okay, we'll use you for trade. We'll leave you alone." And Jeb, and even though Jeb is not technically the mayor, he's just the guy with the most influence.
There's still an old man who is the mayor, but he's the one that has the most influence. And the mayor's pretty much like, "Okay."
Right, because they had threatened just to kill Jeb, and the mayor was just going to listen to whatever anyone said. But so they had essentially signed a trade deal, and everything was hunky-dory there.
Yeah.
So then the focus became, let's help Thuthiya. So they had ended that night, and Thuthiya was getting she was getting medical help. I think they had almost gotten the heart out, but she was still unconscious. I forget, did she get it all the way out by the time we left?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was that night.
That's the one you had with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it had gotten to that night, and everyone was getting ready to go to bed, and that's where Sorn had gone down to the wine cellar, or the mead cellar, to get more mead, to be like, "Hey, we're not all dead." Open the door, and it's not the mead cellar anymore.
It's your good buddy, Fox! Come on down!
and that's where Sorn's like, "What do you want, demon?" And Fox is like, "Hey,
I didn't do anything. Don't you look at me."
He's like, "I'm here to help you. I tell you what, you get me a soul, I'll tell you where Kikyo is." I'm like, "Why would you even know where Kikyo is? I ain't giving you anything." "Oh, but Cal did something."
And that's when he goes, "Oh, I'm surprised. Oh, okay, Cal knows more about this."
Well, no, he had said that Cal had done something. But Sorn was like, "You're a demon. I'm not going to believe a word you say about anything." But Fox had made a compelling enough argument that Sorn was like, "I'll watch. I'll prove it to you. I'll bring her down." So he had convinced Cal to come down to the mead cellar.
And angrily, Storm was like, Someone did me wrong.
Someone's lying to me." So that's where we found out that Cal had done her action, and that's where Sorn promptly picked up the chair that Cal was sitting in and threw the chair with Cal still in it against the wall.
You also
Unwarranted, by the way.
Cal denied it, tried to at least, and then Fox was just like,
she denied it first, and then that was the triggering thing because he had asked Cal. Sorn was like, "Hey Cal, you don't even know what actually happened to Kikyo,
And Cal's like, "Nope. No idea."
"Oh, cool.
And then Fox
you want some good mead?"
Fox like, "Oh, Cal, it's unbecoming of us to lie to one's friends."
Right.
And then Sorn was like, "Wait."
So that's where Cal was like, "Yeah, I did. I saved Jeb, though. It should be fine. I saved Jeb." And Sorn was just mad that you were just sacrificing people's soul. Like Jeb,
because that's when you also found out that she didn't barter, she didn't do anything. Fox was like, "Oh, she was quite willing to give in to my demands."
Right, where Sorn's mentality is like,
I get so much shit for this, but honestly, like,
it's different
I
mentalities.
mean, different mentalities, but to be fair, you gave
a
a soul away for, like, not bartering.
Not even like, can it be someone else? Like, I'll give you a white talon soul.
I'll give you 5 white talon souls. Final offer.
But that was where, Fox kept offering, like, bring me Droppelman's soul. And, like, as much as we didn't like Droppelman when we interacted with him.
At that point, he hadn't done anything wrong.
He was just a shady, bookie,
he's a bad man, Majima.
But he wasn't, like, evil. He wasn't hurting anyone. He was just trying to put on a show. He was essentially Vince McMahon of the modern era, of the D&D era.
And before you stormed out, Fox tried to do he's just wheeling and dealing.
Right.
He was like, "Hey,
Well, Sorn had refused because he was like, I'm not going to kill someone who doesn't
So he
deserve
looked
to be
at
killed.
Cal and was like, hey, you give me Grom tags, we can work on Kikios.
Which Cal didn't really like Grom Tag, but having already pissed Sorn off, Cal was like, no thanks.
So we had left, or left the cellar.
Well, apparently that pissed Fox off quite a bit.
Oh, fine. As soon as they left, they heard, like, as they were leaving, they heard, like, as something hit the door. And,
Right.
yeah.
So that's when Sorn went back upstairs. Like, Sorn had gone upstairs to go sit with Thea. So he went to go hang out with his mom. But then Cal started drinking heavily. And then that's where you opened up your journal. Again.
And that's when the
that's
was
where
like, what you looking at, pal?
Oh, well, no. She had opened up the journal, and that's where she found Gorn's face. The one that he had ripped off.
It was his
now
actual, like, skin embedded into the
book.
page.
And she had screamed and thrown
It's a great
through
book.
the journal.
Highly recommend it. You can find it online.
And so she screamed it through the journal, and then Liren picked up the
like,
journal and was like, "What's going
throw
on?"
that?
And looked at it, and then she saw the face, screamed, and then that means that she had now automatically become attached to the book. But when she saw it, she screamed, ran upstairs, and hid in a room.
Oh, and this is one of this arc is one of my favorites because of how much, like, how everything went so right on my end and just so wrong on your end.
Right. So Liren's hiding in a room, affected, but Bilal
Crying, like sobbing. Bilal's like, you handle Cal.
Well, no. Even before he goes up, he's asking what's going on. This is where Cal explained what happened. She's like, well, first off, she explains about the journal.
And everyone's like,
she's just
dude,
she's like, someone's talking to me through my journal, pretending to be my dad, or saying.
And
they're
they're
my
like,
dad. They're like,
what?
Okay, fam. And then she explains about the Jeb situation. She's like, there's a whole lot of stuff, and goes like this quick run through of everything to the group, except for Sorn. Sorn's up somewhere else. He's just
Sorn's with his mom.
Yeah, he's got other priorities. He's just angry. So Cal explains all that, and Bilal's like, okay, cool. We'll address that in a minute. I'm gonna go check on Liren. Goes upstairs to find Liren, and he does detect magic.
And finds out that she's magical herself, but also has a slight bit of necrotic, like, evil magic within her.
Like somewhere in her brain. So he does
He
does
pretty
dispel.
much dispel magic, and he rolled.
Too high.
He rolled.
It was
like
it was
above
like
over
28 or
yeah, it
something
was
like
above
that.
a 20, and
Ridiculous.
so he did.
dispelled so hard.
Who boy! So Hannah's as a homebrew subclass, the Arcane Blade. It's kind of based on an Eldritch Knight, except a little bit slightly different.
It's similar to the Sword Mage
From 4.
From 4.
And so she became unattuned to her rapier that she had been attuned with for most of her life. And so what happened was she did that, and then it just into existence again, and like clattered to the ground.
Nothing magical about it, just a
And she was
basic
like, "What did you do?" She felt a little better because the ghost went away, but she's like, "What'd you do? What did you do? What the fuck?" And
so she ordered him out. So then she had locked herself in the room. And that was where she was until we were about to leave, which we'll get to that in a little bit. But that's where, because we had stayed one more night.
That's when a lot of heart-to-heart happened between
and
Thea, Auntie, and Jeb.
Right. Well, yeah, because we had slept that night where Jeroen had slept in the same room with Thea as well as Sorn. They were all in the same room, like at her side.
With Karn.
Karn had stayed asleep. Jeroen had stayed asleep, and Thea had woken up and left the bed. Like, she was gone. And Sorn's like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Hold on. Oh, fuck. And found out that she was, like, out the window, like, sitting on the roof watching the sunrise. So he had went and talked to her for a little bit. That's when
she imparted more about...
No. She stayed unconscious. She talked to me through, like, a vision. Mm-hmm. And that was where Jeroen, he was like, she's going to stay here. Jeb will take care of her. I have to go back and try to reunite the clans. That when Thea wakes up, she'll come back. So he had left, and they had kind of shared like a begrudging like handshake. They're like, okay, Dad, we'll make sure that she comes home. We've got her back. Everything will be fine. So he had left. Auntie stayed. Everyone, like all the Goliaths had left except for a few that were staying just in case the White Talon tried to turn around and come back. But it was after Jeroen had left and all the Goliaths had left. That's when she had woken up. Because that was where she revealed that she didn't want to go home yet. Because she was like, I'm going to stick here for a little bit with your aunt. and I'm just going to try and
I'm going to do my best to get better.
She's like, if I go back now, nothing will be okay. I need to get my head back. She's like, I've been dealing with a lot of crap for a while, brother. So she had said that she was going to stay there. Jerome had left like the day prior. And that's when we were like, okay, well, where do we go from here?
This is another great thing that happened. When you guys getting ready to leave, because remember, Karak walked back into town, beat up. Dead, near dead, and he was like, my friends. And he imparted on you with like information about the White Talon, but also about Yangu's forces and the mine and everything like that. And then faded from existence. Remember, he got pulled to the Nine Hells. So he was no longer on this plane, and he like gave his final remarks and gave you things. And that's pretty much where this arc, right before you guys left, and that's where this arc kind of ends.
Yeah.
So you guys, everything was mostly back to normal to an extent. You guys had saved the day, saved the clan as much as you could.
As much as we could. So Jerome was going back to try.
Goliath agreed to stay like as a small like defensive.
Some of them, especially ones that were. I think it was mostly a lot of Gorn's people that were like, we need to pay our penance for hurting everyone, and they're like, we'll stay here to protect them in case the White Talon tries to betray. So that's where then we were discussing where do we go from here. Max had shown up. He was like, what the heck is going on, guys? I'm all over the place hearing all kinds of things from you. The postmen are really confused, and it was like, cool. He was like, this is kind of what happened. He was like, okay, cool. Well, now I have more information. And we're like, hey, could you do us a favor? Could you go to the mine and blow it up?
So also you told him about Karak, and he was like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's when you found out Karak was secretly a postman the entire time.
Yes. So Max was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll blow it up. Just so you guys know, there's some stuff happening in Humbleton and Dramic, the two towns that you had just been to. And we're like, oh, that's good. We should probably head back to one of those.
Yeah.
So we had decided to go back to Humbleton, but of course that also involved getting Lyran out of her room. And that's where, because she wanted nothing to do with anyone. Bilal had even tried to make a sheath for her sword, but he was like, I can't go talk to her.
There ain't no way.
Right. So then, So Sorn went up, had a heart-to-heart with Lyran, convinced her to come back down. We said bye to Mom, bye to Jeb, and everything like that. And I was like, all right, time to go to Humbleton. And we, as we made a beeline for there, we heard a big explosion at one point. And then a little bit later, Max comes flying by us.
It was like, hey, I blew up the entrance of the mine. That's the best I could do.
Bye!
Which... that ends Arc 3, Solitude and Sonderheim.
Right,
so it's question time.
Well, this was a big chunk of it. A big chunk of time. Because we're talking about, this was multiple sessions. This was almost like two different arcs in itself.
So, going back to when Gorn first betrayed everyone, dummy a betrayal. How did Sorn feel that his own brother had betrayed him?
It sucks when Sorn just has the worst luck with family.
Family matters.
Yeah. So the second he, was like I deal with my dad, I'm gonna find my mom. Then it's like, oh, my good brother that I've never had an issue with turns out to be the mastermind of everything. Because we had also found out that it was Gorn who kidnapped.
Kidnapped everyone. Pretty much everything that happened was Gorn.
Yeah.
Well,
Gorn.
Right.
That demon's still alive.
But it probably made you feel pretty bad.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was
it was like losing a brother.
Right.
I mean, he did.
He did.
To be fair,
and he's going to watch Karn go back with just his dad. And like, oh, God, I really hope Mom goes back soon. I want him to not be like...
And Karn was trying to be as stalwart as possible. And like, we're going to be okay.
Right. So there was... Yeah, so it was just like, oh, no, that sucks. We know, as far as other things go, we know Cal thought that she was doing right by selling a soul.
Yeah, how did Sorn feel? I know he was angry, but
oh, he's still angry. It's one of those things where it wasn't even brought up to him. It was one of those things where probably even if she had bartered or even talked to Kikyo, Kikyo probably would have volunteered. But I think it was one of those things where since she didn't express any other thought as far as anything else, it was just like, sure, did it, and then did it immediately. I think that's the part that he's most mad about. Because, because it would have been, Sorn could have seen that, as much as it would have sucked for Jeb to die, He would have seen it as a warrior's death because he would have gone down fighting.
Yeah.
Even talking to Kikyo might even volunteer to, she's like, well, whatever I can do to help, and things like that. But I think it was the fact that she didn't even question anything or stuff like that. I can't think if we actually had any long-term plan as far as the
White Talon?
Yeah, the White Talon.
No.
Well, I think that for the White Talon, we had kind of discussed the fact that the White Talons were had their base hiding in the mountains, and so did Yangu's forces. So I think we were kind of we're gonna avoid that for right now.
Well, most of the group. Sorn at one point was out of the mindset well, let's just take out one group and then we'll head to the next group. It was let's just go for it.
I think we decided that, especially after Max was like, oh, hey, there's this stuff going on back in these towns. We're like, oh, let's go do that instead. So
right. And I guess the last thing that we can really discuss as far as this arc was how did Jeb feel about finding out that Cal had essentially sold his soul to save his life?
I mean, he was over the moon thankful because he gets to spend time with his...
See, somebody was grateful.
Hold on. He was thankful that his life was saved, and he gets to spend the rest of his life with his wife and daughter, but he also was upset that he definitely does not believe that he deserved to be saved. There's other people that could have been saved, or there's other deals that could have been made, or he wasn't worth the trial and the fighting and you guys' friendship, because he knew so he knew exactly that it was going to cause a rift between you two and between the party, but he was still thankful and appreciative that somebody willing to do that. He was kind of sad though,
right?
That it was Kikyo. So from a perspective of the mine, yeah, the entrance is blown up.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it was the best because again, nobody had enough dynamite to do much else at the moment. But again, it's priorities, I think.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Priorities, one step at a time.
So the group had then Lyran had refused her sheath for her sword. She was still very angry at Bilal, and as far as I can tell, even up to when we're gonna start streaming,
still angry at Bilal.
Still angry at Bilal, because now she learns more about her whole sword and everything else later. So we make the decision to head back to Humbleton, which was the town that we felt most attached to, and started heading that way.
Yeah. And we'll be continuing that story in our next episode, Terror in the Tower.